月に変わっておしゃきゃ。
Sailor Moon on the Sega Genesis, or I should say the Sega Mega Drive. This game was only released in Japan. It came out in 1994, but it's basically just a port of the Super Nintendo version, which I believe came out in 1993, or at least it came out first, obviously. The game was originally developed by Angel, but Arc System Works did the port to the Mega Drive. They've done some decent work. It looks like around this time they were doing a lot of ports. A lot of ports to the Sega Master System. So games like Ghouls and Ghosts and Michael Jackson Moonwalker, I believe, they ported to the Master System. They've only done a few Genesis games by this point. They did the port for Battletoads, which was okay, but it wasn't great. So, I mean, considering that was probably the last game they did before they did this for the Genesis, they did a really good job here. I think I was showing off the arcade version of this game, and in the comments, at least someone mentioned that I should check out the Mega Drive version because it's pretty good. Again, at this time I had played the Super Nintendo version, and I think there's some things about this version that I like better, but it's got really one major downfall, or it's got one major flaw. Again, graphics are pretty good for a Sega Genesis game or a Sega Mega Drive game in 1994. The music's actually pretty good. I think I prefer some of the graphics better in this version than the Super Nintendo version. The graphics are, in some ways, I think... So the Super Nintendo version has more color, and there's more color on the sprites, but it's almost like excessive shading, and it doesn't look like the cartoon. I think the sprites in this version look more like the cartoon. So, I don't know. I would say the graphics are kind of a tie. You may prefer the look of the Super Nintendo one, you may prefer the look of this one, but otherwise the sprites, they're about the same size. The backgrounds look pretty similar. I mean, the graphics are pretty similar overall, but I don't know. I think this one the sprites might look more like the cartoon. What do you think? The music, though, I think is actually better on the Mega Drive version here. It's not to say the Super Nintendo version sounds bad. The theme song is there, and it's very Super Nintendo sounding. It sounds like an early, Pilot Wings or something with You know, the reverb cranked up to 11, which is okay. And again, the music in the game sounds okay, but some of it's really like slow paced. It's like, you know, slow paced elevator music, which when you're beating, it's like a fighting game and you're beating up multiple enemies on the screen at a time, and you've got this really slow paced, you know, elevator music playing, or the background music you would have heard in, you know, a mall or something in the late 80s or in the 80s. It's good sounding music. Technically, it's fine. It's just, it doesn't really suit the game. I think the level 1 music alone on the Genesis version is a little more upbeat, and it sounds good. They did a really good job with the music. I think the sound effects maybe are a little better on the Super Nintendo game. And again, some of the levels are different, so if you've played the Super Nintendo version, I think it's worth playing the Genesis version, or vice versa. If you played the Genesis version and you like it, it might be worth playing the Super Nintendo version through, just to see what levels are different. But like I said, the Genesis version, or the Mega Drive version here, has one major flaw, and it's only one player. For a beat 'em up like this, only having one player is pretty bad. That kind of makes the game, like, if you had to own one of the games, the Super Nintendo version, just for having 2-player co-op. Yeah, I initially downloaded this game and I thought, oh, me and the wife will go through it, and I'll record that and make the video out of that, and quickly realized, yeah, it's 1 player only, which is, again, for this style of a beat 'em up game in 1994, pretty odd choice. I don't know what's up with that. Again, the developer here, or the guys that ported it at least, they did a pretty good job all around, but not having 2-player is a little strange. The Genesis version, if you want to buy your own copy, I think is also pretty expensive. The Genesis version, the Mega Drive version, was only released in Japan, where the Mega Drive wasn't doing as good as the Super Famicom, or even the PC Engine. The Mega Drive was kind of a distant third place in Japan. But yeah, anyways, so the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom version in Japan, I think just in general would have sold a lot more copies. But the game was also released in France and Brazil, I think. I don't know, there's a couple other countries where the Super Famicom version got a release, whereas the Genesis version, I think, was only released in Japan. So it's a little harder, it's a little more rare, it's a little harder to find, and therefore it's going to cost you a bit more, I think. So again, if you wanted to buy a copy, I guess go with the Super Nintendo version. But again, as a single player game, there's things I like about the Mega Drive version better. I think the music is definitely better, and again, there's some different levels, so it's worth checking out at least. As far as the controls go, everything's fine, everything's responsive. A is attack, B is jump, and C is like a special move. But as far as I understand it, like each Sailor Scout has like another special move that I couldn't really figure out how to do. I think like I can throw the tiara, playing as Sailor Moon here, but I never figured that out. And I think there's like I've done it a few times and I don't know how, but there's like when she kicks, when she does like a jump kick, there's like a bit of like a lightning attack or something that comes off of her leg. Again, not sure how I'm doing that. So I would say each Sailor Scout has a few extra moves, and they may be different like button combinations or move, kind of like Street Fighter input moves or something. I'm not sure. Obviously C does a special move, but there's definitely at least one or two, I think, extra moves that the characters may have that I haven't figured out. So I don't know, maybe read the instructions if you're gonna play this game. I didn't. yeah, I would say it's a decent beat 'em up. Obviously, it's kind of easy. Obviously, it was made for a younger audience, perhaps a female audience. But, you know, they didn't just phone it home, I think. They've got the characters from the anime, some of the locations from the anime. Voice samples are decent. And just overall, again, the graphics and the music are, I would say, surprisingly decent for what it is. It's actually a pretty decent game, so. So yeah, that's Sailor Moon for the Sega Mega Drive. If I didn't mention it or you didn't notice, I am playing it with an English patch. I'll have the link to download the English patch in the description. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. Again, pretty decent game. So there you go. See you guys later.